Hey, this is Ford. Um, I wanted to just make a very quick note about um, life. No, not life. That's too broad. About existence. No, consciousness. That's it. Life, the universe, and everything. Consciousness. So I keep coming back to this. It's really interesting watching certain sci-fi shows and movies and reading books. It's something that comes up. It's like, what is consciousness? Who are you, and how does you change, or your view of yourself change, if you don't have certain benchmarks, perhaps, or the environment. For example, without memory, if I woke up tomorrow with no recollection of what my name is, that I have two kids, that I have a mortgage, whatever, be a different person. I would be probably feeling a little bit lost, but imagine you change those memories, or imagine only parts of those memories survive, for example, after a stroke or some other major event that, affect your ability to process consciousness, or to create consciousness, not processes, process the inputs around you and create consciousness. And one of the things I came across a little while ago was really interesting is um, our subconscious brain. There's a part of it that's simply tasked with making things add up. It's about continuity, and it will fill in an awful lot of blanks with bullshit. Quite frankly, sorry if I'm swearing, but it doesn't care about fact. It cares about whether it makes sense or not. Hence why, if something happens to you that is completely um, it is like an alien or a big event, like a bomb going off or something like that. It doesn't necessarily need to be negative. But the point is something completely, shocking and different. Your brain's got problems. Your consciousness got problems processing that, and will come up with some kind of explanations that make sense, even though they're completely, unfounded. As long as it makes sense. So, with that said, with that background, what would happen if I took the ability to process inputs and create this consciousness, which is something we don't fully understand. We assume it's a reasonably complex system will create consciousness on its own. In fact, we don't even know whether animals have proper consciousness because they can't really tell us, or maybe their consciousness isn't advanced enough to communicate with us, because they sure as hell communicate with each other. So what happens if I took that ability and my memory of who I am, what I've done, decisions I've made, where I live, what's going on, skills, learned behavior together, maybe with some genetic, information, stuff that basically defines my body and therefore acts on my mood and my feelings. Like right now, I've got really inflamed eyes because of the hay fever. So if we took all of that and created it in a new person, what if we created a computer, for example, which is a common kind of sci-fi trope. That being, that computer program, whatever you want to call it, would know no different unless you told it and said, by the way, your physical body died, we uploaded you into, uploads. Great show, by the way. Unless you knew it, you would have no frame reference, and that's why in uploads it's a cool thing. Spoilers, by the way. In order to scan people in, they have to cut their head off. So there's no way two people can be the same. And this is an interesting conundrum. So if you imagine you were reborn in a different body, and you took all of that DNA information, that information stored in your brain, and the ability to process life around you in a conscious kind of way, and you had the original still, that means there's two unique consciousnesses, and as far as you are concerned, you're still you, because you can only see you unless there's a connection between you and somebody else. You don't. You only think, therefore you are. You are aware, you're self-aware. And if you don't have context, for example, if you died and they uploaded you into a new body and they never told you that you died and the original body is gone, then nothing would have changed. But if you consciously say, look, I'm going to transfer myself into this, then wow, what does that mean? Well, it just means it's always meant that your consciousness really is a fantastical thing that we don't fully understand, and if there was a way to transport the capability and the memories, a little bit of DNA magic, then you would be a very different person, but you were still the same person, and you would still be conscious. It just, you would have a different frame of reference, and you would have a different you will probably make different options. And this is interesting when you look at twins, people who share exactly the same DNA information. They may have been born 5 minutes apart, and they may have been treated very much evenly by their parents, because we make loads of decisions, especially subconsciously, about what we're going to have for lunch, what dessert we're going to have, what we're going to do on a Sunday afternoon. Doesn't mean that you're going to be the same person at the end of it. So this is a fantastic idea. So would I be happy, just to end on this, would I be happy, or would I be sad, if you want to put it into north and ones? I think I would be happy, because it means that I, as far as I can perceive myself, would still exist. If my original body is gone, then yeah, I'll be sad that original bit discontinued, because there's a bit of nostalgia, and that's a very different kind of environment, I guess, for the consciousness to be in. I don't necessarily need to clone myself. I don't necessarily need to be a robot or just live in a computer, but the idea of maybe being free of your physical self and experiencing loads of different inputs and just growing that consciousness is something that's intriguing, especially if you start going down the software route rather than the wetware route. You start being able to roam the universe, in a drone for all eternity. You can see the end of time, and you could conceivably network with loads of other beings on the same wavelength. On this, you could develop consciousness in a completely different way, which is, the human mind is very limited in that sense. We can imagine what it might be like to some extent, and we can conjure up those kind of stories in our head, but we are bound by our human form, and if we don't break away from that or through that, then we'll be beholden to it. And some people, and I just add with this, for some people it is incredibly important to die, to know that there's a beginning and an end. And this was interesting, watching BoJack Horseman and The Good Place, the latter, which I haven't really watched that much. They have two very different philosophies, and one of them is open-ended, and the other one is very much like, we need a beginning, middle, and an end for our lives to mean something. And for me, I don't agree with that quite strongly. I agree that it can be helpful, but I want to see how it ends. I want to see what it all means. I want to develop. I want to experience. And just having this one life and living it is difficult, because by the time you've kind of figured out how this works, your life ends, and it might end any time in between, and it's just a waste. And this is the interesting thing, because I don't believe that there is necessarily a creator that willfully conjured up this universe for us to live in and exist in. I don't know, and I want to see whether this is a simulation. I want to see whether there's a carrot or something at the end, or cake, if you get through it, or whether everybody just gets a well done for participating kind of medal when they die. I think it would be an incredible waste, and this is a very subjective, very human thing to do, to attach value to something like that, because the universe doesn't care whether you think it's right or wrong, because it's not a being necessarily, and it's not aware of itself, and it's not making conscious decisions. It just follows a set program, which again, we don't know where they came from, whether they just randomly appeared, and we believe there are regions of the universe where the laws are slightly different. But the point is, nature doesn't care what we do, what we think about it. So we can either live with it or we can try and understand it. And I think that that bit, the living together and understanding, is the most intriguing part of life. And for me, the value that I attach to everything is, it would be a shameful waste of a consciousness, of a conscious life, to not experience as much as we can. It is bloody hard sometimes. And there have been, times recently when I thought, what's the point of all of this? Actually, coming out of this is, there's so much to experience, so much to do. And if we only have this one consciousness, then we need to kind of, make the best of it. But I certainly find the whole thing very fascinating. I hope you do too. But I would love to hear from you. I know that it's hard to comment on internet things in general because people, but I genuinely want to hear from you. So either reach out at hello@forwardprefixguide.com or just by leaving a comment. Have a great day.